StraighTallDay.com.
Stillness is a system. What we're talking about here today is how to dominate via emotional containment. Now, I've told you many times in many episodes of this show that you are in the emotional management business. And we talked about emotion in a lot of different ways here. Episode 2853, the emotional challenge of success. Episode number 2839, why you actually want to be emotional. Being emotional is not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing, depending on how you use it. Episode 2745, your mental and emotional immune systems. Episode number 1781, how to emotionally detach and still produce results. Also, episode number 560, you are in the emotional management business. What that means is you have to learn how to channel emotions, not smother them and not act like they don't exist or hide your emotions. Don't do that. You want to actually feel the emotions and then learn to channel the energy of any emotion you have into productive, effective behavior based on your standards, your systems, and your desired outcomes. That's the topic here today. So many of us have been socialized and taught incorrectly about the very concept of emotion. We are taught that a person who is still, calm, even stoic, or dispassionate in any way, they're often looked at as if they are missing something, like they're doing something wrong, or they are not being, quote unquote, enough to influence or persuade others. Today, I'm going to argue that that is an ass backwards frame. Remember, I went on somebody's podcast years ago. I don't remember who exactly it was. It was a podcast it was a mindset based show. And we had the scheduled appearance. So I hop on the Zoom call. When I hop in the Zoom call, the host of the show was on the Zoom. And I was sitting there. If you're listening to me right now or looking at me on video, I was sitting in front of the camera the same way I'm sitting here. And I got on, I said, hey, whatever the guy's name. I'll say his name is Mike. Hey, Mike, how you doing? And he had this like big, his energy was, let's just say he was emoting a lot more than me in a positive way. He was emoting. He was like, hey, what's up, man? And kind of a little caricature-ish of a motivational type of guy. That's how it was, kind of caricature-ish, his energy. And I can't remember and then I said something back to him like, yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on, etc. He said, hey, man, he still had this big perma smile on his face, this fake smile on his face. And he's like, hey, man, you're supposed to be all like hyped up and ready to go, man. Like, what's up? Like, this is fake shit. And I didn't change my energy at all. I acknowledged what he said, but I didn't change my energy at all because I think he could tell that I could tell he was kind of being corny and fake. And you don't need to do that if you have solid material to share, which I did. And we did the interview and everything was fine. So I'm giving you that as an example to tell you that even if you're not, overly emoting the way that some people think they have to in order to get their point across, that is not how you influence and persuade other people. There may be some people who like it, maybe some people even entertained by it and amused by it, but does that actually influence them? The answer is no, it does not. It's a good way of putting on a show and maybe telling yourself that you did something, but is it actually doing anything? I'm going to argue that it does not. I'm going to show you how being calm and stoic is not passivity, but is actually strategy. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is stillness is a system, how to dominate via emotional containment. Number one, stillness is about control, not about silence. Being still does not mean not saying anything. It just means having control. When you are in your proper mental and emotional zones, you may become quiet. And you're quiet not because you have nothing to say, but because you are choosing when, how, or even if you're going to share anything, that you're going to open up. Or when, how, or even if you're going to do anything or make your mark on a situation. Because sometimes it may be better for you to just say nothing. Sometimes it may be better for you to do nothing. That's what power does. It lets everybody else go first. Then it makes its move, if it even makes a move. Sometimes you don't have to do anything. Sometimes it's better to do nothing and just let the other side, or not the other side, but everyone else do all the work, and it pretty much ends up going your way anyway. You don't even have to exert anything. For example, I was just listening to the lawyer for Mr. Diddy, also known as Puff Daddy or Sean Combs, who was on trial in the summer of 2025. You remember, one of his attorneys, he had a whole team of attorneys, but one of his attorneys was on this show. I think it's called Law and Crime, his YouTube channel, very popular. They basically cover all cases. And one of the things that she was asked by the host of the show is, why did your side during the trial of Diddy, the federal government, United States versus Diddy, Sean Diddy Combs. They didn't call him Diddy, but Sean Combs. And what happened, in fact, in this case, is that Diddy's side, the defense, never called a witness. They basically cross-examined every witness that the federal side brought to the stand. They cross-examined those people, and they decided, after all those cross-examinations, they did not need to do any calling of their own witnesses. They were fine with just what they had. And the attorney, it was a woman who was on the show, was asked, why did you all not call any witnesses? And she said, sometimes as a lawyer, you got to look at the situation and ask yourself, based on what we've seen so far from what the prosecution has put up on the stand and our cross-examinations, do we even need to call a witness? I think our case is strong enough if we do nothing and don't offer any witnesses that we're in good shape here to get the outcome that we want. And by all intents and purposes, as of this recording, Diddy is still actually being held incarcerated. He was actually found guilty on 2 of the 5 counts. But the 3 counts that were the strongest against him, the ones that would have carried the longest mandatory minimum sentences, basically would have put him away for the rest of his life, he beat all 3 of those charges. So in the big picture, even though he got found guilty twice, technically, he actually did come out on top in this situation. Diddy did. And this is the whole point. Sometimes you win without having to exert everything that you have. So sometimes this is what power does. Power knows when to hold back and also when to step forward. Even then, when power does make a move and step forward, it needs less energy and less time to have more impact than everyone else, often more impact than everyone else put together. So when people are consistently reactive and trying to put their energy out there in some way, often when they're faking, like this podcast host whose show I was on some time ago, when you're constantly doing that, you lose leverage. Because when you show anybody anything often enough, especially an expression, an output, eventually people get used to it and they stop responding to it. And you don't want to be controlled by whatever you are reacting to, and other people don't want to keep having to react to you, which is why you got to be careful how often you're emoting and putting out energy, because it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Or there's only so many times you can cry wolf before people are going to stop reacting because they know that you're joking. So you got to learn how to channel this energy. And that's what power does. Power is usually not doing the most in the room. Power is often doing the least, but getting the most impact from the little that it does compared to everybody else. The person who feels pressure but does not flinch under that pressure always ends up holding the upper hand. As it's been said, that the calmest person in the room, the person who is least flustered when things start to happen that fluster the average person, the person who stays calm and stays unflustered, they always have control in every situation in life. The calmest person is always the leader in any situation in life. Moving on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is stillness is a system. We're talking dominance via emotional containment. Number 2, stillness triggers discomfort in the weak. Stillness triggers discomfort in the weak. If you ever watch a National Geographic show, or any of you who spent any time out in the wild, in the woods, or hunting or anything like that, you will notice that animals such as rabbits or mice, or these animals of prey, animals that are mostly prey animals, that they don't eat any other animals, they just get eaten by other animals. These animals often are very jittery, fidgety, and antsy. By nature, they're jittery, fidgety, and antsy. Why is this? Well, they have to be. By nature, they have to be. They've evolved to be this way because they know that any sound that they hear off to the left, to the right, in front of them, behind them, from above, any sound that they hear might be a predator that's coming to kill them. And they have to be on alert, on high alert at all times, so they can get away as quickly as possible from that threat to their lives. So even in stillness, when it's absolutely silent and they don't hear anything, they're still fidgety, looking around, wondering, making sure nothing is creeping up on them or catching them, or at least that they can notice. Why? Because they're weak. They're prey animals and something might happen to them. So they have to be careful and make sure nothing happens to them. This is the reason why we've all been socialized to believe that, and actually let me tell you the rest of the analogy here. Now, on the other hand, you take an animal that is an animal that's a predator, that's mostly predator, meaning it eats other animals and that's pretty much what it eats. You can take an animal like a lion, for example, which is a lion is an apex predator. It's at the top of the food chain in its space. There is no animal that eats lions But lions eat damn near any other animal. And every other animal, even the ones the lions aren't trying to eat, move out the way when a lion comes. Lions don't eat birds, but if a bird is sitting on a tree and a lion walks by, the bird flies away. And if a lion is in stillness, the lion is a threat to everyone else. See, when a mouse is in stillness, the mouse sees everything else as a threat. When a lion is in stillness, everything else is threatened by it. Same situation, just two completely different responses because of the energies of each respective animal. And stillness triggers discomfort in weak people. Now, what does this have to do with people? Well, I just told you. Stillness triggers discomfort in the weak, period. And when it comes to humans, weak people are discomfited by stillness. What does that mean? Well, one way you see this play out is that we've been socialized to believe that anyone who is still, anyone who is stoic, anyone who is calm, anyone who is, they are measured with their words and how many words they put out there. They're a type of person who someone may look at them and believe that something may be quote unquote wrong with them. People will try really hard to get you to talk, to get you to express yourself. They'll say something like, "Why are you so quiet?" And they'll say it in a way that is meant to have you believe that something must be wrong with you because you are not talking or expressing or exporting energy as much as everybody else is, at least not in the way that they do it. You're not expressing energy the way that everybody else is nearly as often as everyone else is. So people are looking at you like you must be doing something wrong because you're not doing what we do. So it's a socialization manipulation trick that a lot of people will use with you when you're still and quiet, because most people are disturbed by someone who is not expressing themselves enough for you to read them and find out who they really are, what they're really about, what they're really thinking, where they're really going. Most people want to know all those things about you because it gives them comfort to know exactly where you're at, where you're going, what you're doing, etc. And when they don't know, they're kind of unnerved by that. They'll watch you more than they would if they knew more about you. So when people know everything they need to know about you, or at least everything they think they need to know about you, they tend to be able to not pay attention to you as much because they know everything they need to know. But when they don't know everything because you haven't given them everything, they keep watching you because they're not quite sure what to make of you. Remember how we talked about in the previous episode, people start filling in gaps about you. A couple episodes ago, people start filling in gaps about you when there are gaps. See, the only way people can fill in the gaps about you is that you got to leave some gaps. Now, if you fill in all the gaps by giving them everything, well, there's no gaps left. There's no mystery left. So they don't need to watch you because they already got everything out of you. You gave it to them. This is how stillness becomes power. So it triggers that discomfort. And this is why, again, socially, you see people will say something to you like, "Why don't you talk more? Why don't you say more? Why don't you tell me more? Why don't I find out more about you?" They want to know more about you so that they don't feel anxious around you. That's the reason why they do it. Weak minds, like the mouse or the rabbit, they tend to be fidgety, never still, never calm, always needing to express, and they need to exchange or leak energy because the weak are incapable of containing their energy. And they can't contain their energy because they are under threat at all times. They always feel like they're under threat. And this applies to humans the same way it applies to rabbits and mice, because a lot of humans are like rabbits and mice. So when a person is still, they don't move, they don't emote, they're not allowing every thought to travel from their brains to their lips and out of their mouths. Everyone else in the space feels a little bit uncomfortable with that person unless they are also the same way. The only people who don't feel uncomfortable around the still, calm person is another still and calm person. When you are not reactive, you're not physically letting everyone, you're not mentally or emotionally reactive, you're not physically reactive, you don't let everyone know your emotions at every moment through your words or your behavior. People try to fill in the blanks of what you are not saying and not doing. As I just told you, they assume confidence, they assume a threat, they want to figure you out because your lack of expression makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability is dangerous to the weak. As I gave you the example, a mouse or a rabbit out in the wild in the woods they feel under threat at all times because they have no idea what may happen around them because it's all unpredictable. But a lion out in the exact same spot in the woods does not feel threatened because the unpredictability of what might happen, the lion understands that no matter what happens, I'm going to win because I kill things. Nothing kills me. The mouse kills nothing. Everything kills it. That's why it's under threat. You understand? Any of you have been in a situation where you were quiet, not talking much, and then everyone else is expressing themselves. You're allowing them to express themselves, and you're more reserved. You probably notice somebody pointing it out to you. Like, hey, maybe even calling you out, trying to get you to talk more, as I just explained to you. It's not because they're trying to be your friend. They may hide it as trying to be friendly with you. They're really doing it because they can't figure out who you are because you're not saying anything, and they want to figure it out because they want to resolve that anxiety in their minds that you represent. They need to fill in that gap and solve the puzzle that you represent. So they try to use some type of reverse psychology to get you to open up and get you to talk. And again, it's just a trick because people need to resolve that anxiety. They're not trying to manipulate you, not in a negative way. They're trying to manipulate you in a way that calms them down, because what you're doing is different than what they're used to. It's different than what they do, definitely. And if you didn't understand what I just said, and maybe let me say it another way. If you didn't understand what I just explained back when it happened to you, because I'm sure many of you have had this happen to you. I've had it happen to me. You may have fell for the trap if you didn't understand it. The good news is you don't have to fall for the trap because now I told you what it is, so now you can look out for it. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is stillness is a system. This is how you dominate through emotional containment. Number 3, being still is not a mood. It's not an emotion. It's a built-in way of being. Everyone, even the loudest person in the room, has moments where you are quiet and you're saying nothing, depending on what's happening, or maybe something that happened in your life that got you thinking or feeling a certain way. I'm not talking about being quiet. Being quiet is an activity. I'm talking about stillness as a built-in way of being, as just part of your normal psyche, a system, if you will. Staying calm is not something that you try to do. Staying calm is something that is trained and ingrained in you. It's the reason why people do meditation and mindfulness and yoga practices, to practice remaining calm when things get crazy. That's the reason why it's a practice. You practice early in the morning when nothing's going on, so that during the day when everything's going on, you can go right back to that place. Why? Because you prepare for it. Through repetition, structure, standards, and consistent practices, you can become a calm person, not a person who gets calm. There's a difference. Do you understand that difference? Your default can be a calmness, a stillness, a unshakability that other people start to read off of you and they just notice it. And the reason they notice it is by the law of contrast, because most people are not like this. Just by doing it and assuming this posture, you become different from everybody else simply because nobody else is doing it. And since most people are not like this, by the law of contrast, you stand up. Understand that dominance, ladies and gentlemen, is not about you lording over people or controlling everybody else as much as it's about controlling yourself. You see, when you have a lot of control of yourself, you stand out because most people don't. So as soon as they see you with it, you are different than them. And they're like, wow, this person has a lot of control over themselves. I don't have control over me. You become the leader by default because everybody else is leaking energy from every crevice all over the place at every chance. You not doing it makes you stand out automatically without trying. That's what we're talking about here. Let's recap today's class, which is stillness is a system. Dominance via emotional containment. Number 1, stillness is control. It is not silence. It is a control. That means you talk when you want, you move when you want, you act when you want, not because you're trying to suppress yourself in any way. Number 2, stillness triggers discomfort in the weak. A mouse or a rabbit is always uncomfortable out in the open because anything could come from any angle and kill them. A lion is never uncomfortable out in the open, or even any type of predator animal, a hawk, an owl. These animals, a wolf, a fox, they are not, maybe not a fox, but a wolf, never uncomfortable out in the open because they mostly do the killing. They don't get killed. And when you have that energy, you're not worried about anything that could come from any angle around you because you know you'll be able to handle it. And if anything, you are more of a threat to whatever may come from your flank than they are a threat to you. And number 3, stillness is not a mood or emotion. It's a built-in way of being. It's a system. Staying calm is not something you try to do. And being calm is a way of being as a person. Is not an activity. Being calm is an activity. Being a calm person is a way of being. And dominance, again, is not about trying to control everybody else. It's about controlling yourself. And when you are the leader by default, because everyone else is leaking energy and you are just calm and still, you become the leader by default. This is, again, the concept of the lion in the room. What does it mean to be the lion in the room? It means you have the energy that you're not concerned about what anybody else is doing or where anybody else is going or what anybody else is saying, because you know if push comes to shove, ultimately you can kill anything around you. And again, I'm not telling you to actually go kill anybody. What I'm saying is I want you to get this point metaphorically. I talked about how to be the lion for the day in episode 1294, by the way. All that said, everybody, at workonyourgameuniversity.com, we have the Power Presence Protocol. It was a program that by the time you hear this, I will already have taught, but it's going to be available for you to access as a course and to be coached by me on, that teaches you how to have the aura, the energy of dominance, stillness, and presence that makes people attracted to you. It makes you magnetic to both the same sex and to the opposite sex, and it makes people want to follow you without you saying a single word. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com/power. Workonyourgameuniversity.com/power. Learn about the Power Presence Protocol and get involved. Work on your game. Dre, all